always go together, but they go together with you. And I wanted to start off with some breaking news and sad news for Wisconsin progressive journalists and newspaper readers, especially for folks in the Milwaukee area. The great columnist Joel McNally has passed away at 80. For 27 years, he worked at the Journal. And then for a couple decades more at the Shepherd Express. He was a feature on radio in Milwaukee and on public TV in Milwaukee for many, many years. Earl, your thoughts on the passing of Joel McNally?
Man, you sent me an email or text message, whatever it was, and it broke my heart. Um, Joe McNally was a dear, dear friend. We both worked at a radio station.
We're missing a little bit of audio there. Try coming back here for a second, Earl. Keep going.
All right, Willie Davis, the former Green Bay Packer Hall of Famer, owned the radio station WMCS, and because of that, we were able to, you know, work together on the same radio station at the same radio station for a number of years, and became really good and dear friends. And so I watched Joel's career from radio and other things. So just heartbreaking.
Very heartbreaking. He was a great liberal voice, progressive voice. He wrote a couple times for me at the Progressive Magazine when I was there. He was at Fighting Bob Fest a couple times. He wrote for the Shepherd Express for the last couple of decades. He wrote a couple columns after Trump won, and I want to just read a little bit of that, and then we're going to hear a little of his own voice. But this is Joel McNally's column from November 18th at the Shepherd Express, where he said Trump has the worst presidential cabinet in history, which is 180 degrees from what Elon Musk told us yesterday. And Joel McNally said the ideology of the Republican Party is no longer conservatism, but destroying democracy. And he warned that the election was not a roaring mandate for Trump to destroy the Constitution, which is basically what he's doing. He also talked about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race and said electing Susan Crawford will be critical to preserving the progressive majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. He noted that Schimmel tried to destroy our right to vote by filing a lawsuit to suspend the results here in Wisconsin. And so he urged you and all of us at the very end of his life to, keep involved in politics, vote for Susan Crawford on April 1st. He urged you and all of us at the very end of his life to stand up to Donald Trump. Here's what he said in one of these columns. Trump can always be counted on to do everything he can to draw attention to himself. It'll become increasingly outrageous, but it will keep Americans engaged in protecting our constitutional rights. We somehow need, he said, to convince a majority of Americans that democracy is worth fighting for. And Joel McNally always fought for our democracy. What more do you want to add to that?
I will miss him immensely. He was a friend, a really good friend. I could call Joe, and he and his wife decided about 7 years ago to move to Charlottesville, Virginia, and just enjoy life. He was so full of life, and he was a battler. The thing I loved about Joe McNally is Joe McNally was a bare knuckles brawler, and so if you ever got into a debate with Joe McNally, the kitchen sink would be thrown into the debate. He's just was just a guy who had so much fight in him. Man, there's only going to be one Joe McNally. I miss him already, knowing that he's gone. He was a good friend, and we just had some. And when I got into this type of environment, he helped me so much because I didn't do this for a living, and I came into it late, and he just helped me all the way through it. So, man, my heart breaks.
Yeah, it's
Today,
heartbreaking.
Joe McNally's voice is no longer there.
Yeah, and you have my condolences, Earl. I didn't know him nearly as well as you did, but I respected him greatly. He was a warrior. He was a happy warrior. You know, he'd throw the
Yes.
kitchen sink at you and then smile the next sentence, which is
Yes.
another nice aspect of his personality. Um,
And you know that laugh that was only Joe McNally's, right? He always laughed. He had this great laugh, and yeah, that'll be missed.
yeah, I think we got a little bit of his voice that Jess has prepared for us. So let's just hear a minute of Joel McNally as we remember him.
A lot has changed since I've been here, but boy, a whole lot hasn't too. When I came to town, you know what? I came to Milwaukee. Henry Meyer was mayor,
In Trent.
and I had an image of him as a young, progressive, democratic mayor. I, I got here and found out he was at war with, the whole civil rights movement, James Groppe and Val Phillips. And pretty soon I found out that I was also one of his enemies, and that he was at war with me and at war with all the press. But he wasn't wrong about everything either. You know, he and Pat Lucy created the state shared revenue so that, municipalities and counties would have part of the income tax from this state to pay their bills, and it didn't all have to come out of the backs of the property taxpayers. And that existed for decades until the current administration. And people are a little baffled by how confident I am that things are always going to get better and progressive things are going to win out ultimately. But I've seen it happen during my lifetime. I saw Barack Obama elected president during my lifetime, which I never expected to see.
That was 9 years ago, the voice of Joel McNally. How confident was he in your last conversations, Earl, about us turning things around?
Well, so Joe McNally always called himself a cockeyed optimist. And I never will forget, because I think he was from Indiana. As a matter of fact, I know he was from Indiana, and so he was a rural guy, and so I used to always laugh at him, and we used to, because I was always a pessimist, and every time I'd have him on the air, he would always say, "But Earl, you know me, I'm the old cockeyed optimist, and things are always going." He always believed that things would get better. He always had a belief in mankind. It was at the root of who he was, his spirit, and all of those things. Just a loving human being, but man, a fighter to the end. Here's a guy who, as I stated before, was going through something the last year or so of his life, with the dialysis and those kinds of things, but he never stopped being connected to what made him who he was. At the root of who Joe McNally was is a man who was willing to stand up and fight for others. And so I will continue his legacy, um, until my last breath. Uh, a part of Joe McNally is in me, and so I'll continue to make sure that what he fought for, as long as I get the opportunity, won't ever die.
And some of the things he fought for, labor rights. He was a big union organizer. I think he was a shop steward at the Journal before it became the Journal
Yes.
Sentinel. He opposed that merger. He got booted out after the merger, which was a horrible thing to do to such a great columnist. He was a huge supporter of civil rights and civil liberties, a great supporter of independent journalism, a critic of monopoly journalism, of this journalism that's being gobbled up, these papers gobbled up by one corporation after another. Now they're what? 6 or 7 huge corporations that own most newspapers in the country, and our newspaper industry is dying as they keep laying off people. So he was a champion of the First Amendment, champion of the trade of journalism, and champion of a lot of our rights. So if you, the listener, want to weigh in with your remembrances of Joel McNally, do so at 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. You can call or text us, and we'd be glad to hear from you about Joel McNally, who's died today at 80, a tremendous progressive voice in this state and in Milwaukee, great journalist, a great colleague of Earl's friend of Earl's, acquaintance of mine. I don't want to overstate my relationship with Joel McNally, but he was someone I always from afar admired greatly. And I was saddened to hear the news. You know, it's weird when you hear the news on Facebook. You're not sure if it's true or not. This has happened to me a couple times in the last year of people I've really admired, and one close friend who I found out on Facebook. It's just a weird way to find this stuff out. But there you have it. Joel McNally, the great voice from the Milwaukee Journal and the Shepherd Express, no longer with us and will be sorely missed. We've got one more minute here, Earl. Do you want to add anything more before we move on?
So may God rest his soul and his wonderful wife of all of those years who was with him and by him, and they were inseparable. And she did some great things in this city with her life, and so may God rest his soul. Job well done, my good and faithful servant Joe McNally. Well done.
Mm. Joel McNally, rest in peace, rest in power. We'll be right back in the Dom Salvia Show.
Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. And while you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul. Not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
Sorry for the slightly jarring musical shift there in terms of tone.
Yeah. It's all right.
We do have one caller, Richard from Waukesha, calling about voter suppression in 2024 that led to, at least certainly in part, to Trump's win.
I'd rather just talk with Earl. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. And then we just got a text in. I'm going to copy it in for you.
Okay. Okay.
– 30 seconds. $15.
So true. Matt Rothschild here, subbing in for Dom on the Dom Salvia Show. I'm here with Jess P.S. and with Earl Ingram of the Earl Ingram Show that runs on many of these Civic Media radio stations in the mornings. Earl, we got a text from Matt from Middleton who says, seems a big part of Project 2025 is going back to before the civil rights victories. Can you explain what going back means for Americans, particularly people of color? Do you want to take that, Earl?
Well, I can tell you, I don't know if it was today or I did commentary on my show this morning about what is transpiring right now. And, we hear a lot about rural America and what's happening to rural America. I live in urban America. And I talked about, if you look at poverty, and the numbers were, the in America 2023, Native Americans 22% in poverty, African Americans 18%, Hispanic Americans, no, Hispanic Americans 16.6%, and it was others, I think 9%, but white Americans 7%. And I talked about the fact that the constant talk about what's happening to rural Americans, and they're struggling, and the pain they're feeling, and yet nobody talks about the pain of people who live in the cities, and especially people who have been marginalized and who are going to get the worst end of this Donald Trump train. It's always the people at the bottom who are going to be damaged the most. And let's not mistake ourselves. Um, Affirmative action 2 years ago was wiped off the books, and now diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is an attack that Donald Trump and others have basically shut down in major corporations across this nation. Anybody who's willing to talk about equity and diversity in a nation that is that. And so Project 2025, at the root of it is that. And Donald Trump is not smart enough a man to have concocted what is taking place in this nation. People should be aware of that. This is bigger than him. He's nothing more than just a guy who's in a suit and who will be gone. But this clearly is something that will happen, and I don't know how we get out of it, Matt. I really don't know. The damage is going to be totally severe in this nation, and the pain and suffering, I don't see how it can be turned around.
I heard you this morning on your show, Earl Ingram, saying a similar thing. You said we're in a horrible, horrible place, and I don't know how things are going to get better. You must have an inkling of things that we could do that might make things better, even though the odds are stacked against us right now. I mean, they've got all the power. I mean, they got the U.S. Supreme Court, they've got the White House, they got the Senate, they got the House. So, the power equation is not in our favor.
No.
But we do have people. We do know how to organize. We do know how to speak up, and you speak up every morning. Dom speaks up every afternoon. So does Jane. So does Maggie. So does Todd Albaugh, and so do a lot of people nationally, like Robert Reich or Heather Cox Richardson, who my wife loves, and AOC and Bernie and folks like that speaking up. And I'm seeing more and more people at the grassroots. So there was a protest in Milwaukee 2 days ago in defense of Medicaid. There was a protest at Ron Johnson's office also here in Madison that I attended with 400 other people. I think people are getting over the shock of what happened in November and are furious at what Donald Trump and his co-president or deputy president, Elon Musk, whoever you want to call him, is doing. And so I see the resistance building, don't you?
So let me say two things quickly, because we only got a couple minutes. Let's understand that almost 50% of the American people don't vote. The other 50% is split down the middle. And so we're talking about a society that I don't see what's going to bring them together, the people together. The people are divided. So, the united we stand, divided we fall. We're divided. So who brings us back together? There is no magic bullet. There is no person who has the personality, I think, in the wings that is going to be able to show up and bring all these different factions of Americans back together. These people have organized and done some damage.
Oh, the damage The damage is quite substantial, but I don't think we're not going to get. There's no figure who's going to ride, into out of the sunset or into the sunset and save us. We got to save ourselves, and we need to talk to everybody in our community. People who didn't vote, especially people who have voters' remorse right now, who voted for Trump and now regret it and may have gotten fired. People who may
Right.
still be clinging to some hope with Trump, but we can have conversations with them. Not the folks flying the Confederate flags or having the Nazi swastikas on their biceps. We shouldn't be talking with them. We can't change their minds and might be dangerous. But everybody else, we need to have conversations and try to bring people around. Otherwise, we're not going to get there.
Well, at least we do have one thing in our favor, and that's a civic media that we didn't have before. And so there's always hope. Just at this age in my life and seeing things through the prism that I see them, I hope that I'm wrong. And for the sake of our society and the world, we've got to turn this around.
Yes, we do. I want to thank Earl Ingram for being my guest. If you want to hear more from Earl Ingram, I had a conversation, a podcast with Earl on Civic Media's website, civicmedia.us, on how racism infects our politics here in Wisconsin. And I got to thank you, Earl. You provided so much wisdom, so much insight, and also some very fascinating anecdotes about your own personal history that it was one of the best podcasts I've been able to do. Really relished that opportunity. So thank you again.
Hey, Matt, it's an honor and a privilege, and anytime, my friend. Thank you. See you later,
Thank
Jess.
you. We'll be right back on the Dom Salvia Show. I'm Matt Rothschild.
Cam from Appleton asks when you'll grow into Matt Roth adult.
Whatever. Talk about being an adolescent.
Hear that, Cam? Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. We don't need to. I just was typing up a text that I won't send. We don't need to go. I'll just take one text on Joel McNally, and then we'll move on if you didn't know him.
Perfect.
Cam
Melissa-
says he didn't
Melissa
mean to
did.
offend you. He was just trying to make a little joke
Oh,
that
whatever.
I'm sure you've never heard before in your entire life.
I told my kids to change their last name anyway. But that's a longer story. Joe, I might ask you about communication tips and then about the Supreme Court race and anything else you want.
All good.
1 minute.
Alrighty. Is that Gatorade, Joe?
So rehydrating.
Well, there you go. I've got some right here.
Five seconds.
Hey, Matt Rothschild here, subbing in for Dom on the Dom Salvia show. We got Jess P.S. on the board. It was always great listening to Earl Ingram. I could listen to him all day long. What a voice, what a perspective. I do want to take a couple texts that we've received about the passing of Joel McNally, who died today, or at least we were notified that he died today. Great journalist and progressive voice down in Milwaukee. Wrote for the Journal Sentinel for 27 years and the Shepherd Express for a couple decades. We have Bob from Glendale who says he met Joel several times, seemed like a genuine nice guy. Certainly was. Genuine is the word. And CJ, who is often the bête noire of Civic Media, was kind enough to send a sympathetic text saying, sorry for the loss of your friend, Earl, Matt, and Dom. That was really sweet of you, CJ. We can disagree on politics and still be human beings, so appreciate that. I want you to call or text if you want to join the conversation, 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. And I'm delighted that we have as my next guest Joe Zepecki. Joe Zepecki's the founder of Zepecki Communications. He's a veteran of several political campaigns. His friends
Too many
call
to
him,
count.
I was going to ask. His friends call him Jay-Z. And he lives in Milwaukee, and he joins us now. Hi, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm okay, man. Thanks for having me. I am also sending along warm thoughts to the McNally family. I was talking to my wife in the car, Melissa Baldoff. She also works in political communications and had occasion to work with Joel multiple times. And it was very sad to hear about his passing. So may his memory be a blessing, and all our love to all those who he managed to touch in some way with his writing over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there are a lot of people on Facebook weighing in. The Journal Sentinel has an article they posted about 2 hours ago. Jim Rohn, great journalist himself, is quoted in there extensively, and I'm sure it's a sad day for him and everyone who was called Joel McNally a close friend, as Earl Ingram did. I was just an acquaintance. But listen, Joe, I want to get your expertise. Yesterday, I had Lisa Lucas on from All in Wisconsin. She's a communications expert too. Yeah, she's just a great person, and we had a great conversation. I love her do's and don'ts about how to message, and I think it's very useful for our listeners here at Civic Media to get tips from pros like Lisa and from you. So, why don't you give us a communications tip about how we can talk with our neighbors who, may have voted for Trump, but don't like Trump, don't like what he's doing now, or maybe they didn't vote. They're not hardcore right wingers, but, they're not watching politics every day like we do and talking about politics every day. What's a strategy or a tactic communication wise?
They're still the sane ones. Well, I'm going to nerd out for just a second because
Please
yesterday, the season 2 teaser trailer for Andor was released. And the soundtrack to the teaser trailer was Steve Earle's The Revolution Starts Now.
Mhm.
There wasn't a lot of dialogue in the trailer, but there was a line from Cassian Andor that jumped out to me. Do you want to fight or do you want to win?
Hmm.
We want to win. And so we have to be conscious and smart and strategic about how we communicate all the time. Earlier this week, I, for the first time, was in a room with Judge Crawford and her old boss, former Governor Jim Doyle, gave a few remarks. And I thought he hit the nail on the head, which is that we are all feeling all kinds of feels when it comes to what Donald Trump and co-president Elon Musk, who is literally a Bond villain, are doing to this country. Okay. And we can be mad at them and we can take out our anger on them. But we need to understand that the people who voted for Donald Trump are our neighbors. They are the people we go to church with, or in a softball league with, or our kids are on the same t-ball team. And we cannot let our anger at Trump and Musk consume ourselves to the point where we stop viewing our neighbors as our neighbors. We need to talk with them. We need to listen to them. We need to hear them. And we need to stand up for what we believe in all at the same time. And we can do that respectfully. We can disagree respectfully, and we can hold our convictions dearly because they are important to us. And given what Musk and Trump are up to, we are going to find a lot of opportunity to pull people over to our side in these times. When you look at issue after issue, from the corruption to the devastation of things the federal government should do and is the only entity that can do, right? People are going to feel, people who voted for Donald Trump are going to feel and disagree with slashing the VA, making it harder for the men and women who wore this country's uniform in the armed services to get the health care they need. Communities that voted for Donald Trump are going to feel the impact of dramatic cuts to Medicaid. In fact, rural communities are going to be impacted more so than our cities are by this sledgehammer that they're taking to Medicaid. And so we need to stick to the facts. We need to, I think, respond to every nonsense charge and allegation, and we can be a little bit more forward leaning when some knucklehead radio yacker starts claiming that Tony Evers wants to change the definition of anyone who carries a child to term and call it out for the BS that it is. And we can, if we do all of those things, as Donald Trump and Elon Musk crash the economy and wreck the federal government and everything that it provides, we're going to be just fine politically.
You know, this is one of the things that I've been talking about for months now. We can't say that everybody who voted for Trump is an evil person or a far right racist and that they're incorrigible. And part of the problem, I think, for some of us, and maybe it's a Madison Isthmus problem more than anything, but is you don't, depending on the neighborhood you live in, you might not bump into someone for a week who voted for Trump. And
or
then
a year, if you're
or
on
a
the
year,
isthmus.
depending exactly on your location. And so that is, and I used to live one block from West High in Madison. I could go a long time without running into someone who voted for Donald Trump. And so then you get a weird perspective that, they're just, a different species of human being. And that's a terrible thing for our democracy. It's also a terrible thing for doing politics because, the art of politics is not only getting your side out, but convincing some other folks to come around to your side. So I want people to hear what you had to say there about talking to people at your book club or at your poker game or at your tennis match or wherever who may not be with you now, but they'll be pushed. Trump and Musk are pushing people into our arms as we speak.
Yes. And this is not the first time that an American president has threatened the Constitution or American values. I'm reading a book right now, The President versus the People, that goes all the way back to John Adams in really trying to stretch the definition of executive authority. And the thesis of this book is that it was not necessarily institutions of government that pushed back. It wasn't always the Supreme Court. In fact, there were American presidents who conspired with the US Supreme Court to make it take longer for Black Americans to be recognized fully and equally under the law. What made it possible for America to get through these trying times was we the people. We are the sovereign, and we have the ability to win back power, to claw back power, and to ensure that guardrails that erode or fall by the wayside are not only rebuilt, but are rebuilt back stronger for the future. And that is what we have to try to figure out how to do. We cannot fight for fighting's sake. We have to win. We have to win back political power so that we can reestablish these guardrails, reassert American values at home and around the world. And if we are strategic and smart and committed, we can do that. And by the way, I'm a coach. If you need to take a play or two off, that's okay. Somebody else can step in for you, right? If you've just had it and you're not able to not, scream at people and you need to take a few plays off. We've got time here.
Joe, what do you coach?
I coach football, and I have coached basketball. Last year, I coached a fifth grade boys basketball team, my little buddies, and I went and saw them as sixth graders this year. I wasn't able to coach the team this year because the election got in the way at the start of the season, but it was a lot of fun to see how much they've improved in a year.
And what age football are you coaching?
High school. I coach
excellent.
at Whitnell High School, which is where I played back in the 1900s, as the kids like to remind me when they're being sassy, and I've been coaching there for 7 years.
What position did you play?
Defensive back. I was a corner.
Oh, there you go.
A corner who hit, Mr. Hit, on the my senior year.
You like to hit.
That's right. Within the lines.
Legalized hitting.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I did some I coached soccer for many years as my kids were very young, until about 5th or 6th grade. So that was fun. I loved coaching. Once in a while, someone will still call me coach, which is kind of a funny thing. You probably get that all the time.
I do, and it's a great honor every time.
Yeah, it's just a great thing. It's a great way to participate. And sometimes the parents would get on my nerves, but I tried to let that go. They're rooting for their kid and want their kid to get more playing time. I understand that. But look, I mean, we have this problem of just communicating within our tent. And what I like about what you're saying here is we got to get outside the tent. We got to communicate civilly. And that's what we try to do here on Civic Media. And one of the great things about Civic Media is we appreciate dialogue. I appreciate when CJ calls. We can have dialogue unless he's just reading off a script or just doing one argument after another that he hears on Fox News. I like having conversation. I believe in conversation. I'm kind of an old John Stuart Mill guy. I think if we all could just have conversation, truth will out, ideally. Maybe Fox News has disproven that, but I still have some faith in it.
And I think that is part of the challenge that we're all navigating, is that the way the information environment has changed and evolved, it used to be there were just a couple of stories that humans could tell each other and themselves, right? That mass media was only capable of carrying a couple narratives at a time. And now we live in a world where everybody can find a story that is unique to them or unique to their smaller silo. And in some ways that's good and helpful. In other ways, it's dangerous. And as humans, we just haven't figured out how to navigate this new reality. I mean, when you think about the power of story and what it means to our human evolution, what's the oldest thing that humanity still does? Sit around a fire and tell stories.
Right.
There is something that we are wired for where we want to hear stories, and we got to figure out what story to tell. We got to tell a lot of stories, a lot of different ways through a lot of different mediums. And if we figure out how to do that, we're going to win back some power. We're going to be able to rebuild these guardrails and reestablish American leadership. And that's what's so sad, is to watch places around the world where there is genuine suffering. Here at home, listen, economic times are tough, but there is not the degree of suffering that we have now foisted upon starving children in Africa, people dealing with AIDS on the continent, the people on the front lines of the battlefield in Ukraine. That is life and death, and they are feeling it much more acutely than we are so far.
Because of these cuts to USAID and other things that Elon Musk is doing. And the story that Trump has been saying for a long time is, it's all the immigrants' fault or it's DEI. And the story we need to say is This is a government right now of, by, and for the billionaires so they can enrich themselves even further, and we're going to suffer as a consequence. And I think if we keep telling that story and reminding people about why we need government, why we need, national parks, why we need Medicaid and the VA and these other things, then I think we'll be able to recapture some power. And it's about recapturing power. And maybe we'll talk after the break here, Joe, in about a minute or two about the upcoming Wisconsin Supreme Court, because that's when we can get some power. We've got a couple callers on the line, Gary and CJ. I see you. We will take your call right after this break. You're listening to the Dom Salvia Show. I'm Matt Rothschild, subbing in for Dom today, who was on vacation. We'll be right back with Joe Zepecki.
Call lines lighten up.
Excellent.
I tried to put CJ on hold, but he dropped off.
All right, he
after I
may call
screened
back.
him. He'll call back, I'm sure. All right, I'll text this in. We've got about 15 seconds left. We've got Chris from Rice Lake on the phone. Went to Whitnall High School as well. Joe, wanted you to know that. And Joe from Madison called in as well. And we're coming back.
Visited by thorns, another dark day. How you're like the sun hiding somewhere beyond the rain. Needing for the light.
Hey, Matt Rothschild with you on the Dom Salvia Show. Dom's on vacation, so Jess and I are still here, though. And so is Joe Zepecki. He's the founder of Zepecki Communications, a veteran of many political campaigns, and a communications expert, of course. We've got a couple of callers, Joe, so let's take the calls. I think we got Gary from Sussex first, right, Jess?
Yep, you're on, Gary.
Oh, hi. Hi, you guys. I couldn't agree more with Joe when he was talking to the neighbors. That's exactly what I do. Having discussions with people. I'm a heating contractor, and I just got done with a job, and I just left it. And this guy is a staunch Democrat. And when I got done with the job, we had a really nice time talking. We joked around, and he asked me what I thought, and I told him what I thought, and I gave my opinion. And I told him that Trump said what he was going to do. He's going to be a dictator on day one. He still got voted in by 54% of the people. So nobody should be surprised. But let's just give him a chance and see what happens. And if we can start paying off this $2 trillion that we might be able to get back and pay off the debt, that might be good.
Well, thanks, Gary. The reason they want to pay off that $2 trillion, though, is not to reduce the debt, but just to give themselves an allowance so that they can give the billionaires and the millionaires all that that $2 billion back in tax breaks. So it's not going to help out on the deficit. It's just a cover for the deficit and them increasing the debt. I'm not surprised. I think you're right, Gary, and thanks for the call and thanks for the tone too. Appreciate it. I don't think anybody should be surprised about what Trump is doing. Because he told us pretty much what he was going to do. And if you're a student of history, you know the kind of spots that Donald Trump has, and he's not going to change his spots. So I'm not surprised what he's doing, but I don't think we should just sit back and wait and see how many people suffer. I don't believe in going that way. But I appreciate the call. CJ, you're next. And thanks again, CJ, for your comment about Joel McNally. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's sad. It's never easy. And my condolences to everybody and his family and friends. So, but Matt, I think we're a pretty good example of people that can talk about things and not go off, on the deep end on each other. I actually agree with Gary that. I wish they'd start covering. He just had his fourth country's leader here, the UK. And, it's a beautiful thing that we have a transparent president who actually answers any question right now. And I think it's amazing. He's talking now peace, ending the Ukraine war. With Russia or finding a peace agreement. He's doing it with Israel. I think now our allies respect us.
Well, I appreciate the call. CJ, Joe wants to weigh in here, so it's all yours, Joe.
Yeah, listen, I will never automatically line up behind someone who professes to want peace in the world. I want to be really clear about that. What I have a problem with is when, for the first time in American history, we've apparently changed sides in the middle of a conflict and are now on the side of Russia, which rolled tanks across a border and tried to decapitate a democratically elected government in Zelensky's Ukraine. And when Trump says we're going to negotiate and he sits down at a table with only Russia and doesn't even offer Ukraine a seat at the table, how much peace are we pursuing? And when the president's national security advisor gets asked a point blank question, what concessions are you seeking from Russia? And he cannot answer the question. Sure, I appreciate the transparency that they're taking questions from the media, but that's not an acceptable answer to say that we want concessions from Ukraine, but not from Russia. And for everybody who's concerned about all this money we've spent on Ukraine, more than 70% of it is money that went to American arms manufacturers to make things like new artillery shells because we shipped our old ones to Ukraine. So we are investing in American manufacturing, we are hiring American workers, and we are modernizing our arsenal all at the same time. So we need to understand that if we're going to have a conversation about what's going on in Europe.
Yeah, and nor is his peace plan, so-called for Gaza, going to do any good. And his idea about setting up, Cancun and on the Mediterranean that's just a non-starter. The only thing I agree with, CJ, is that, Trump is communicating, every day with the American people. And I wish Joe Biden had done a better job of that when he was president. So
I'll plus up that one too.
I will give you that. Do we have time for one more call, Jess?
Oh, we can probably squeeze in Joe from Madison.
All right. Hey, Joe, what's on your mind?
I just wanted to point out that we've been talking about DEI in this hour, and Joe, you were talking about the stories that we tell ourselves. Why can we not get the story across that the original, the best DEI defender ever was Vince Lombardi? There's a great story in upnorthnews.wi.com, and it talks about, this has been talked about before, that this man, he absolutely nailed it. In 1959, first time he was the Packers coach, there was one black player. He immediately added 12 more, and he hired the first black assistant in the NFL.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Joe. I got to
Joe.
cut you off because we're at a hard break, but really appreciate the call. And Joe Zapecki, really appreciate you being on as a guest here on the Dom Salvia Show. We'll be right back.
Thanks for having me, Coach.
Thanks, Joe. Hello, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Hello.
Good. I'm hearing a little bit of echo on your side. I'm going to hit a couple buttons and hope that I can fix that. Can you just tell me about your day?
Sure. Not much of a day here in rainy Washington, D.C. Just keeping track of the horrors. We wish I had something more pleasant to say.
Me too. However, you sound great now, so we should be all
Great.
set to go, and we'll be coming back in 1 minute.
Great to see you, Dave. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, and I want to let you know why I was a minute off coming in too. Like, I something I want to share with the audience.
Cool. Sure. Sounds great.
"15 seconds. Dave, I can hear you while you're typing, so if you can mute
I
yourself
won't.
while you do that. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
Actually, it's not Dom Salvia. It's Matt Rothschild. I am guest hosting for Dom, who's on vacation today, and I guest hosted yesterday as well. It's always a pleasure to be able to be behind the mic here at Civic Media, and I wanted to encourage you, the listener, to call or text at 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. And now I'm delighted to have as our next guest an old friend, Dave Zirin. He's the sports editor at The Nation magazine, a columnist for The Progressive. I'd invited him to join The Progressive way back in the day, and he took me up on that invitation. I was glad to note. He hosts the Edge of Sports podcast and Edge of Sports with Dave Zirin on The Real News. He's also the author of about a dozen books, including a couple on Muhammad Ali. One he co-wrote with John Carlos, the Olympic track star and dissenter. He has a book out on Colin Kaepernick. He's got a book called A People's History of Sports, modeled after Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. And you're still working on your biography on Howard Zinn, is that right?
Hello, Matt. Yes, I am. I can't lie. It's taken a detour because of certain world events you might have heard about over the last several months. A little hard to concentrate on getting that draft in, but there you go. That's what happens. I have a feeling Howard wouldn't want to be holed up not knowing what was going on in the world either.
No, Howard Zinn would be a fighter to the end, as he was. And, I wanted to get you on because of all the people I follow on Facebook. You've been the one who's impressed me the most with your understanding of what's at stake right now at this moment under Trump, and your utter impatience and disgust with Democrats who don't get it and who aren't speaking up, and your insistence on the need for public protests against Trump. You were telling me right before we came on the air that you were just doing something that you wanted to report out. So take it over.
Yeah,
Mike
this
yours.
is breaking news. Absolutely. People may have heard about the former NFL player, Chris Cluey, the former punter who out in Huntington Beach in a video that went internationally viral. He told off the very MAGA Huntington Beach City Council and then proceeded to perform an act of civil disobedience. He was carried out by police. And that image of him calling out that city council, of saying the red hat is the new swastika, it became something that actually inspired people all over the place. Well, just got news that Chris Cluey, I might as well just read his Blue Sky post, just got fired being a freshman football coach. If you want to know what MAGA does to communities, they don't care about what helps people, because the school is certainly not going to find an ex-NFL player willing to coach there at that level. They only care about trying to hurt people. And I'm just telling you that there's no level of retribution too small and no act of resistance too narrow that they won't try to get you for, because this is now a government built on the very prospects and the very principles of nonstop, endless retribution. So even the people who are too principled to actually join them, instead, what do you get instead? You get people who are fired, like all the hosts at MSNBC, get people fired like Chris Cluey, or you get people who just remain silent because of a very understandable fear factor. And I think getting over that fear is so important right now, particularly for people with the privilege to be able to do it. People, without young children, people who aren't immigrants, people who don't have police records, people who are able to do it need to be able to make dissent as visible as possible right now. The stakes are so high in that regard. And I'm just glad to be on your show, Matthew, because you're a real one. And you raise the flag of dissent in times where the wind's at our back and the wind's at our face. Although the hailstorms we're experiencing right now, I do wonder every day what even Howard Zinn would have to say with his boundless optimism about the current state of things.
Yeah. He could smell a fascist a mile away, Howard Zinn could. And I smelled Trump about 10 years ago. I thought when he came down that escalator, blaming Mexicans, that this was a fascist. And people were telling me, well, he's not a fascist. He doesn't have a right-wing goon squad. Of course, he has a right-wing goon squad now with the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and folks like that. And then they were saying he doesn't have an ideology. Well, he does have an ideology. It's hyper-nationalism, it's racism, it's sexism, and it's a sadism. And that is an ideology.
I'll give you one more box for the folks who say, well, it's not really fascist or whatever. One of the compelling arguments that he was not a fascist back in 2016 was, wait a minute, he wants to rule the state. He's not trying to deconstruct the state and create something else in its place. And I was like, okay, that's a reasonable argument. I'll think about that. But what's happening now? The deconstruction of what they call the administrative state. I keep thinking of Steve Bannon's words, that drug-addled idiot back in 2015, when he said that he saw himself as a modern-day Lenin, because he had read Lenin's famed text, State and Revolution, because he said, Lenin said it, you can't take over the existing state, you need to smash it. Well, we're seeing a lot of smashing going on right now.
And let's talk about why they're doing it. They're doing it because government is one of only two institutions, the only other institution other than labor unions, that really can stand up to corporate power. And they don't want any institution to stand up to corporate power. They want to be free to exploit workers, contaminate the environment, put out dangerous consumer products, and make money hand over fist doing that. And to the extent that they can get rid of any regulation, they're going to be able to do that more. And they want the government to be a piggy bank for rich folks. And that's what they're doing right now with this tax cut. And so it's a grab, break and grab. And it's also part of an ideology that we heard articulated clearly from Ronald Reagan and then on, that everything public is bad and everything private is good. And I think the American public is waking up to the fact that, holy smokes, there are some public things we really like. We really like Medicaid for our parents who are in nursing homes. We really like our national parks, and we don't want to, have them be shut down. We really like the fact that our fathers who fought in wars or were in the service get a VA health care. So that's what it's coming down to, this whole role. Do we have a government that is going to serve the people, or is it just right there to serve the billionaires? Because the billionaires are running the show right now. I mean, the biggest billionaire in the world is right there in the cabinet meeting.
And that's the part that sort of gives the game away and makes it so naked, because I almost don't even want to say Trump is running a fascist regime, because he's not running it. I mean, all you had to see was the cabinet meeting the other day, and Musk really standing over everybody in an idiotic T-shirt and a hat, talking to everybody like they were children, condescending to them. And if you see, they're all looking at Musk with like this strange smiling look at their face, except for Robert Kennedy Jr., who's probably upset more people aren't dying. So he had a sad look on his face. And then you had Donald Trump, though, looking down to the side at his phone. That's the photo that I got out of that. All right, Grandpa's got his phone, and Elon Musk is running the show, and everybody else is a scared toad. And let's talk about those scared toads for a second. We're talking about reality show hosts, World Wrestling Entertainment impresarios, drunk rapists running the Defense Department. I mean, people with collective intelligence that's just subterranean, the mediocre, the white, the almost entirely male. I mean, that's what this restoration is also really about. It's a restoration against the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which they have been going after for 60 plus years. And one last thing is, you mentioned Reaganism, and I think that's so important that we understand that historical continuity of, you know, Reagan saying like the worst words you could ever hear are "I'm the government and I'm here to help," and everybody laughs and whatnot. It's like, first of all, you want to say, okay, well, let's see how we do without FEMA then. Let's see how we do without funding to fight these fires. But Reagan's revolution was something that was still analog. What they have today is a experience going back, I don't know how long you want to put it, 10 years, 15 years of Silicon Valley venture capital, stripping companies for parts. And that's the mentality. I mean, to put it in more crude form, remember in the movie Goodfellas, where, you know, Henry Hill describes basically, you know, pulling every cent out of that bar he was co-owning. And then when it's done, what do? You set it on fire for the insurance. No fuss, no muss. That's how they're treating the United States of America right now. It is to be strip mined. They're picking the meat off the bones, Bain Capital style, and then they'll be on their way.
Yeah,
who knows
hedge
where?
funds.
Super yachts, Western Europe. I mean, it looks like Musk has his sights on Germany next. Maybe it's Canada, although Trump actually seemed cowed today about a military takeover of Canada because Wayne Gretzky apparently chided him about it. I mean, the ego is so intense. I sometimes think that's the only thing that would actually get through to him. Like if Herschel Walker said, gee, you know, maybe some of these DEI programs are good, you know, that might actually move the needle.
Yeah, it's the combination of the narcissism and the fascism that is so frightening, and also the hedge fund style robbery that's going on. But you mentioned it's restoration against the civil rights era. I also think it's restoration against the New Deal. It's finally, you know, the Koch brothers' dream to overturn the New Deal, and even for some others to overturn the progressive era. And, you know, they probably want to get rid of the Food and Drug Administration before they're done with all this.
Oh,
and so,
you mentioned the parks as well, the hallmark of Teddy Roosevelt's time in office. National parks, the government role in preserving nature, done. Absolutely done as any sort of, as the government seeing themselves as any sort of steward of any sort of true natural life in this country, because, hey, there might be oil in Yosemite, and that actually matters more. And the Kennedy Center, which has seen its ticket sales drop by 50% since the MAGA takeover of idiots from Fox News directing the cultural direction of Trump's golden age in America. Nobody's going there anymore already. Shows being canceled left and right. I mean, what, in a year it's going to be what, a casino maybe?
Could
or
be.
Just, you know, the Trump Center maybe?
Speaking with Dave Zirin of The Nation, he's the sports editor there, tremendous activist too. I remember the upside down flag that some of the parks people put on, at Yosemite. We need to see more of that. And we'll be back in just a minute to talk more with Dave Zirin on how to resist. You're listening to the Dom Salvia Show. I'm Matt Rothschild, subbing in right here.
Not to put too fine a point on it, say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
Now I'm typing.
All right, Dave will be back in 2 minutes.
It's okay that I type in the 2 minutes?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just gonna mute you in here.
Okay.
So you can do whatever you gotta do.
Just the Chris Cluey stuff. I want to contact him and see how he's doing.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
he was coaching freshman high school or college.
I muted Dave.
High
so that he
school.
can.
That's okay.
All right, I unmuted you, Dave.
Thank you. I'd rather not type and talk to Matt.
Sure.
Yeah. No, he was coaching high school. I mean,
God.
his wife works. He raises the kids. He coaches high school, and they just took that away from him.
God, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's believable, but it's all about retribution, revenge, cowering, making people cower.
Well, and part of that too, though, is it's about saying, I mean, Trump obviously is, we could talk about this on air, but is crooked to his very core. And it's this idea of muddying the waters of his own illegitimacy. It's like, oh, I'm not a criminal. They're the criminals. Or
Right.
you do it to me, I do it to you. And it's all bullshit. Isn't it all bullshit? Yeah, lawfare.
You
And
can
not
say that
no,
during
maybe
break,
actually-
but not when we're back on air.
Sorry.
That's Jess. Jess is our great producer. Yeah, it's gone. It's, people were saying I didn't see this go. No one could have seen this coming. Well, people could have seen it coming, but that was the amazing thing. That
Yeah,
they
a
were,
lot of people saw it coming, but
Yeah.
I do feel like, I mean, we could talk. Should I wait till we're on the air? What do you think?
yeah, you can wait till we're on.
All right, we'll talk
Hold
to
your-
nobody.
We'll be back in 15 seconds.
Hold your fire. Hey, Matt Rothschild with you. You're listening to the Dom Salvia Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Dom's on vacation today. You can join the conversation here, 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. My guest this half hour is an old friend of mine named Dave Zirin. And for those of you who are not familiar with him, it's Zirin. Look him up on Google, Zirin. And he's got a lot of great books that he's published. He's the political editor at The Nation magazine. He writes for the Progressive magazine. He's a tremendous analyst of politics, not just sports, and an activist to the core. Dave, we were talking at break about people were saying, well, we never knew it would get this bad. We couldn't have seen this coming. How do you respond to that?
Well, honestly, I'm of two minds about it. On the one hand, they weren't just breadcrumbs; they were massive loaves of bread as to what this administration was going to be and what they were going to do. All of the threats of retribution, all of the threats of how brutal they were. I mean, to even just say we're going to deport 10 to 20 million people. I mean, the amount of violence that is presaging to do something like that. I mean, that was all out there for people to see and for people to judge, for people to notice, or for people to not notice. That being said, the Musk piece of this, Musk in charge of the government, Musk destroying the parks, Musk being utterly unaccountable, Musk acting in a way that's so blatantly unconstitutional, that part, I feel like, was not spelled out necessarily in the way that it could have been. I mean, there were a couple of posters that had Musk and people like Tulsi Gabbard and Kennedy Jr. That certainly is something that we should have seen, and many did see a million miles away. Just the monstrosity that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just literally has led one of the most horrifying lives in the history of this country. And I know that he bears that name, strikes so many people at right to their heart, right to their core. But to take it back to what I was saying, it's like people on one hand did see it coming, but I think the current formation of how it's operating, of Musk standing over the cabinet and talking about, yeah, we sort of, fired the Ebola people, we're trying to deal with that. That is something that certainly was not put on the table, in my opinion, before the election.
And Trump daring any cabinet member to object to anything that Elon Musk had done, and then everybody laughs and claps like they're, the most sycophantic people ever, and they're cabinet members. So it was embarrassing, that whole performance yesterday.
Yeah, honor is not a big thing, a big trait among thieves, we're finding out.
No, and this, he did one of these charades the last time he was in office where everyone complimented him, but there was a Defense Department secretary who wouldn't go along. Now everybody goes along, and they go along because they've made their pact with the devil, or they're part of the devil. They're part of the devil movement. So we only have about 4 minutes left. Here's the big question. How do we save our democracy?
How do we save our democracy? I mean, to me, it's like, how do you resuscitate something that's without a pulse at this point? I think we need to rebuild something that's actually more democratic than what we had before. Because if we don't raise people's aspirations about what this world could be, we're never going to get them to fight. I don't think we're going to get people to fight for Joe Biden's America. That is not going to inspire masses of people to fight back. We need to raise people's aspirations as to what the world could be, or we're never going to get out of the starting gate.
Yeah, just to run as the party of the status quo, or the status quo ante, which is what Kamala Harris did. She had a coalition from the Cheneys to Bernie Sanders, and people just thought, well, that's the establishment. And Trump was able to run as the anti-establishment. People understand. I mean, you listen to Bernie and you listen to Trump, both people are saying the system's rigged. It's just that Bernie was given a completely different answer than the one Trump gives. Trump gives, I'm the only one who can solve your problems, and I'm going to go attack everybody you hate, and you don't have to worry. And Bernie's talking about, socialism, or at least New Deal Democrats. And who other than Bernie are you listening to as an elected official? Bernie or AOC? Anybody else coming to mind who's speaking up in the way that needs to be heard?
Well, I got to be honest, no, because I want them to emerge. I'm not one of those people who's like, boo Democrats 100%. But, I look at what they're saying right now, and even people who are amazing and loquacious and taking no crap, I'm thinking of somebody like Jasmine Crockett. There's no accountability for what the Democratic Party did not do that got us to this point. That's what I'm waiting to. AOC is giving us some of that, and I appreciate it. Sanders going to working class areas in the Midwest and speaking to overflow crowds. That I appreciate very much. But until we have a mass of spokespeople who look at Hakeem Jeffries and say, no, you can't go on Stephen A. Smith's radio show, this just happened yesterday, and say, well, the far left hates me as much as the far right, so I must be doing something right. That old saw. Until we have people standing up to that mentality, I think it's just hot air, frankly. And how are we not seeing the Democratic Party using social media to have these fired federal workers on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? It's so obvious to do something like that. It actually raises the question, why aren't they doing it?
And why aren't they doing it?
Well, because a section of the party, I think, actually agrees with what's happening, and they don't want to push back against that. A huge section of the party openly, Hakeem Jeffries very openly, wants to make up with the tech bros. They don't want to fight for campaign finance reform. They want the billionaire money. Hakeem Jeffries, in the middle of this crisis, went to Silicon Valley, as he put it, to mend fences. I mean, can you imagine the laugh that they had once he left the building? Why do we need to mend fences with you? We might not even have to have elections anymore.
They're in the White House, so.
Just a strategy that's just repugnantly inane. And so those are two of the big reasons, I think. And I also think another reason too, Matt, is that I saw this statistic the other day that the Democratic Congress's approval by Democratic voters is down 54 points.
Yeah, we need more leadership. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Dave Zirin, though, is a person you need to look up. Zirin. Check him out. We'll be right back on the Dom Salvia Show.
You're the best, Matt.
Right back at you.
Thank you, Dave.
No problem.
Yeah, it was
to
awesome.
everybody. Yeah, man. I'm gonna have something tomorrow about MSNBC's death rattle. So, that's part of the problem too. I should have talked about that. The compliance by all
It's
these.
unreal. I'll try to share that on Facebook too. I'll look it up.
Thanks, man.
Great stuff, Dave. You're doing incredible work.
Anytime, Matt. Just ask.
We'll get you back on.
Cool. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Jeffrey. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Hey, Jeffrey, Matt Rothschild. How are you?
Good. Nice to talk to you, Matt.
I'm an old bird watcher, so.
Oh, you are?
You know how crazy we can be.
Yes, I sure do. I've got stories about how crazy birders are.
Now, do you want to go by Jeffrey or Jeff?
Oh, either or is fine.
And pronounce your last name for me.
Worrell.
Worrell. Okay.
That's good. Perfectly correct, what you just said.
Excellent.
All right, we're going to be back in 4 minutes. I'm going to step away from the board for 2 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. And so Jeff will be on from 7:34 to around 5:34 to 5:46, 7, somewhere in there.
Okay. No worries. I just imagine it's going to be an overall casual conversation about our research and golden eagles in the driftless in general. And
especially in Wisconsin, because we broadcast across Wisconsin. So I'm all about having a conversation. It's not a quiz. It's not a master's program test. Just want to have a conversation there. I think there are a lot of people who will enjoy. I usually bring birds in the last half hour some way or another, and we get good response from that too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to sound stupid or arrogant, maybe, but I don't think you can stump me. So,
I'm not going to try to stump you.
I'm not too worried about it.
No, I hope you didn't spend hours in prep. So.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, once I get talking about golden eagles, it's hard to shut me down. So
that's what I wanted to hear. The last time I saw one was I was just in Yellowstone. I was looking for him, but didn't see any there. We were in Oregon at Malheur. I saw some around Malheur Wildlife Refuge.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Western Goldens are considerably different from our Eastern Goldens. So there's some considerable differences, even though they're the same species.
Difference in plumage or difference in what?
No, they look identical. They weigh identical, but they're built a little bit differently in that there is an adage in wildlife ecology, kind of two rules, if you will, Goldger's rule and Allen's rule, and it has to do with body shape as you move away from the equator, right? And so when you're up in the Arctic, your body tends to be, shorter, thicker, better for heat retention. Your torso is stockier and thicker. Your legs are stockier and thicker. As you move to the equator, you're a little bit thinner, longer, easier, more circular.
Jeffrey, I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Is that your phone being moved around?
Possibly on my leg. I can just
All right, can you hold that steady?
Sure. Let me set it down. I was resting my iPad on my leg, so no worries. How's that?
All right. There we go. Yeah, as long as you don't touch it, we're good. But every time you touch it, it makes a noise.
Sure.
And we're coming back in 30 seconds.
All right.
Sounds good. All right, we'll stop talking.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. I'm Matt Rothschild subbing in for Dom today. He's on vacation. You're listening all across the Civic Media Radio Network, and Jess PS in the booth has been super helpful to me today, just as she was yesterday. So thank you, Jess.
Quite welcome.
And you can join the conversation here at 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. I want to thank Dave Ziron, who was just on, who is just a tremendous writer and a tremendous voice, very important voice at this moment. Again, you spell his name Zirin, and I recommend that you look him up. For this last half hour, we're going to do a little bit of shifting, easing up on the politics, so we can talk about another of my passions, and that's birds. Anyone who's been listening to me on the Civic Media Radio Network or knows me at all knows that I'm a crazy bird watcher, and that's a redundancy because we're all a little bit crazy. I saw this article in the Journal Sentinel the other day about the oldest golden eagle in North America, which was found right here in Wisconsin. So I wanted to find someone who could talk to me about that. The group that found the golden eagle is called the Raptor Resource Project. And I've got one of their staffers on the show right now to talk about this discovery. His name is Jeff Worrell. Jeff, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Tell me a little bit about the Raptor Research Project and the driftless golden eagle study, especially.
Sure. The Raptor Resource Project is a nonprofit, and we specialize, of course, in raptors. We were founded about roughly 20 years ago, and our executive director is a fellow by the name of John Howe, and we oversee several aspects of raptor work. We, as an example, monitor all the peregrine falcons on the Mississippi River from, roughly kind of up towards the cities down towards Iowa. Every spring, we band roughly 80 to 90 chicks. We take blood samples from those birds for analysis, both DNA and immunology and virology analysis, the whole kit and caboodle, if you will.
And they've made the peregrine falcons, they've made a tremendous comeback. They were almost going extinct in the 70s from DDT, right?
Absolutely. In fact, that was our start. Our founder, a fellow by the name of Bob Anderson, was a crazy falconer who took it upon himself to start a project of releasing peregrines along the Mississippi Valley corridor. And he was extremely successful. And we taught other people how to do it, and we continued doing it ourselves. And we did it up and down the Mississippi River. And we assisted people in other parts of North America on their efforts. And we put cameras on the peregrine nests, which started kind of hand in hand with the cameras that we put on eagle nests. So another big arm of the Raptor Resource Project is education. We have high definition 4K cameras on an eagle nest right now, broadcasting live 24/7. You will see chicks pipping and hatching because our cameras can come in that close, and we have several of them on the nest. So we've got many different angles to choose from. And we have taken some of the most incredible footage of bald eagles, wild bald eagles, hatching chicks and caring for them. I think
I've seen some of that video, Jeff, at Wild Birds Unlimited in Middleton. I go in to buy my bird seed, and they've got live bird cams going on. Sometimes those bald eagle cameras working. So it is quite a sight to see. And we've got peregrine falcons right here, 3 blocks from where I'm sitting here in downtown Madison at the Madison Gas and Electric facility. There's a peregrine falcon nest every year there. But let's go to the golden eagles. Tell me about this driftless golden eagle study, because, a lot of people in Wisconsin, we see bald eagles, but most people don't know that there are golden eagles in Wisconsin in the winter. So talk to me about that.
Sure. So there are 2 separate groups of golden eagles in North America, eastern and western, and they are, as many species are, divided by the Mississippi River. Our group of Goldens goes all the way up to the Arctic, 2,500 miles straight north of where I'm sitting, above Hudson's Bay, to breed. And in the fall, they take two different migration paths. One goes down along the east coast, the Appalachian Mountains. One comes down here to the driftless area. So we're pretty special. We have our own distinct population of golden eagles that winter here in Wisconsin in the driftless in the winter.
What kind of numbers are we talking about? How many golden eagles are in Wisconsin or across the river in Iowa?
Well, yes, that would include southeastern Minnesota, northwestern Iowa, the entire driftless zone. Um, it's hard to put an exact number on it, but I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 birds total in all of the driftless. Um, the issue is with most people, even intermediate level birders, is that Goldens and juvenile bald eagles look very, very similar. They're big, dark birds, right? So lots of times you're looking at a golden eagle and someone says, "Oh, no, that's an immature bald." And that's happened to me many times. And it's kind of funny because I'm the co-lead researcher on a multi-year golden eagle study. And I've been doing this work for, oh, geez, how long has it been? It's been about 13 years in total since I started my insanity of chasing golden eagles every winter.
And people are correcting you, or they are assuming you're wrong when you're actually right?
Yes, they're assuming I'm wrong when I'm actually right. And it's kind of cute because, it gives me an opportunity to then, let them know and explain what a golden eagle is and be able to hopefully, even in that conversation, see the difference live, look at and point things out in the golden eagle. And what are the easy ways to identify and know the difference between the two when you see them up in the sky and you're looking up and all you see is their underside? Well, the easiest way, and this is right across the board, a golden eagle, whether they're a first year bird or an old 33-year-old bird, their armpit, what you would consider their armpit area, is black. It's very dark. Be no white in there. But on an immature bald, there'll be white inside their armpit, right up close to it, in and around it. Different levels of white on immature balds, but it is, there's going to be white in there, and that's a boom, a definite giveaway. And also, just looking at their silhouette, the golden eagle has a very refined head and beak, very small in comparison to the big honking beak that a bald eagle has, and their big old head, and that long beak that they have. Even up high in the sky, you can see that big Jimmy Durante beak sticking out, and that those two things are the quickest to look at and notice and be able to see the difference. Of
Yeah,
course,
you're right. You're right, though, that a lot of people confuse the two. And my
they
brother,
do.
who lives out in the state of Washington, keeps telling me there's two bald eagles and a golden eagle in the tree. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think it's likely to be
No,
a golden eagle, but I've gotten over correcting people at this point.
right.
Tell me about this old golden eagle that was that you guys trapped in and looked at its banding in Wisconsin.
Right. So, as part of our project, we target adult mating pairs, or what we're really going for in our trapping efforts. And we had spotted a pair in a valley, working and living. The adults, when they come down as a pair, tend not to drift very far. They hunt in, well, roughly a 2 square mile area. Yeah, they'll go take a little day journey, maybe 20 miles away, but they come right back, roost in the same spot, things like that. Um, but we're targeting a pair. We got this male. I'll be darned, he's got a band on him. Well, of course, we can run that band and get the information on when it was banded. and we found it was banded 33 years ago. So after January 1, their age clips 1 year. Doesn't really matter, when they were born in May or June or April. The year on them clips. So when they looked at the year and figured it was 32, but it's actually after January 1st, so he's officially 33 years old.
And how'd you trap it?
So we have specialized bownettes. So think of a large circle with hinges, springed hinges in the center, and very thin aluminum poles that you're able to pull back and activate those springs. And there's a nylon net attached to those long aluminum rods. And it's a 9-foot diameter, very large net. We put a bait in the center of that net. And
What was the bait?
live turkeys.
Oh, wow.
So we use Eastern wild turkeys. It's been, and that's the difficult thing to talk about to the public, that we use live turkeys. But these fellas and gals I can't even begin to express how smart they are and how easily spooked they are and what they will eat and what they won't eat. They won't eat anything dead that's frozen. Sorry, we're not going to touch it. We could have 50 traps out and be there all day long, and we'd be lucky if in the entire season we got one. Because it's not unheard of, but it isn't really natural for them. You see, the difference between a golden eagle and a bald eagle is not only the way they look, but the way they live. Bald eagles eat a lot of carrion, a lot of dead stuff. They're fish eaters. Fish and carrion is their basic diet. Golden eagles, on the other hand, they like dinner warm and kicking. They are a high-level predator. The animals down here that they hunt range from gray squirrels, fox squirrels, rabbits, turkeys, and deer. Their number one thing that it seems like they lean towards the most are turkeys, wild turkeys, and they've worked incredibly well as bait. Believe it or not, we have turkeys that have helped us catch 4 golden eagles and are still alive. Because
that's crazy.
As soon as they come in, the net is controlled by a remote controlled device, and we have live streaming webcams on the net. So we can't be anywhere around. If they see our cars and they smell a rat, they won't come in. So we have to drive a distance away. I mean, they know who we are. It's uncanny. They see something different. There's a car there. Nope. Not coming in. So we drive a distance away. We're looking through the cameras. As soon as that eagle comes in, these remotes have a carry distance about roughly 4 miles, 3 to 4 miles. So we can flip that net and watch it on the camera. As soon as the net goes over the eagle, he has no interest in the turkey. His interest is getting out.
I bet.
So,
Jeff, we're running out of time. This eagle was found you trapped it in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, correct?
In Buffalo County, Wisconsin. He was banded in Pennsylvania 33 years ago. And our guess is he was on that eastern migration route.
We're going to have to leave it at that because we're out of time, Jeff. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I wish we could talk the whole day, but
Me too.
Thanks for being my guest, Jeff Worrell of the Raptor Resource Project. We'll be right back with the Dom Salvia Show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. I could spend the whole hour with you.
Oh, you could tell once I get going, it's hard.
Yeah.
So
That's what happens with us birders when we get together.
yeah, it is. So thank you so much. And
Tell me what I want to tell the audience when they're going to start heading north any day now, aren't they?
yeah, it's the beginning of March. They start moving north. And interestingly enough, they do tend to hang around Wisconsin a lot before they make the loop around Duluth and then get going north. We've had birds stay up in Ashland and Bayfield County up until May. So they're up there in quite a few numbers in northern Wisconsin. So if you think you're seeing a bald eagle immature, you might not be. Take another look.
All right. I will tell the folks as soon as we come back on.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate
so much.
Jeff. You have a nice afternoon.
You bet. Bye-bye.
1 minute. Thirty seconds. Ten.
Hey, Matt Rothschild back with you again on the Dom Salvia Show. Number to call here, 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC because we're on the Civic Media Radio Network. And we were geeking out there with Jeff Worrell of the Raptor Resource Project and his driftless golden eagle study that he's a part of. And just as we were saying goodbye to him off air, he said that these golden eagles that are in Wisconsin in the winter will be heading north almost any day now. And but sometimes he says they linger around Ashland County and Bayfield County for a month or two even. So keep your eye out for golden eagles in Wisconsin. And next winter, a good place to see them are at Devil's Lake and then down to Muscoday and then over to Buffalo County, which is just north of La Crosse. If you don't know your counties here in Wisconsin, I had to look it up my own self. So quite an interesting story that was at the Journal Sentinel earlier this week on this 33-year-old golden eagle that was trapped by the Raptor Research Group. Turned out to be the oldest golden eagle ever trapped in North America. So that's where we are now. Now, Dom has this thing. I think, Jess, you introduced it, right?
I did.
Tell us something good at the end of every show, because sometimes we cover some heavy stuff, and we did cover some heavy stuff today. First, talking with Earl about the passing of Joel McNally, and then talking with Joe Zepecki about organizing, and then talking with Dave Zirin about fascism and Trump. Can't get heavier than that. But then we had this nice conversation on birds, and we got a text from Sherry from Horicon, who's a birder, and she's on the Horicon March and saying the Canadian geese are back there. Sometimes the Canadian geese never leave. But yeah, the birds are coming back. As I said yesterday, the sandhill cranes are coming back. I saw some yesterday. I do have one good thing to report, a good political thing, and that is the Common Council of De Pere, Wisconsin, last week or the week before, passed a resolution saying that they were on board with overturning Citizens United, that horrible U.S. Supreme Court decision that says outside groups can spend unlimited amounts of money in these campaigns, like Elon Musk is doing right here in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. You know, Wisconsin has now 179 communities after the De Pere Common Council came through. 179 communities that have come on board saying we need to overturn Citizens United. We need to solve this problem of money in politics. And Wisconsin is second only, Jess, second only to Massachusetts in the number of communities and governing bodies that have come on board for this. So that's my good news. What good news do you have?
Well, oh goodness. You know, the sky today was so beautiful.
Really was. Even looking out the window here on State
It
Street,
really
it
was.
beautiful
Yesterday
blue.
was gray, and I don't know, I was feeling real gray inside as well. But today the sky was just stunning, and I made sure to take a little bit of time, go for a little walk around the block, and enjoy that instead of just sitting at my desk and, you know, getting lost in all of the everything.
Yeah, it's important, I think, to enjoy the outdoors, enjoy nature, and for me, enjoying poetry too. So I always try to bring a poem to the Dom Salvia show when I'm invited on. And we have a poem here by Rita Dove, who's Pulitzer Prize winning poet. This is a very short one. I think it's a lovely poem. It's very topical politically too. So let's take a listen.
Beside the golden door. Surely there must be something beautiful to smile upon. The umbered blue edge of sky as it fades into evening, the brusque green heave of the sea. When I look up, surely there will be a cloud or a lone star dangling. Truth is, the truth has gone walking, left her perch for the doves and ravens to ravage, hightailed it to the hills, to the quiet beyond rivers and trees. No matter what ragged carnival may be thronging the streets, what bleak homestead or plantation of sorrows howling its dominion, truth would say these are arrogant times. Believers slaughter their doubters, while the greedy oil their lips with excuses, and the righteous turn merciless, the merciful mad.
Wow, that's Rita Dove reading her poem Beside the Golden Door. And it's from a book called Playlist for the Apocalypse, which is a book of poems
Timely.
I highly recommend. Yeah, what a poem. Ragged Carnival. That's a good description of the Trump era, the Trump cabinet, the Trump administration. Arrogant times, no doubt. Absolutely. And in arrogant times like this, we need to find our solace. Solace among people who share our beliefs, people who can lift our spirits when times are rough, and times are rough right now. Our loved ones, our friends, and also the beauty that is literature, the beauty that is nature. These are the things that keep me going, Jess, day in and day out. My wife
Me
for 40
too.
years. We're getting to our 40th anniversary coming up.
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah. So at some point, I'm going to do a show on old marriages that work.
Yeah. I could
or
use
a
that
segment
advice. I'm in
anyway.
a young marriage that
Yeah.
we're hoping to get there.
I told a waitress I've been married 40 years. She said, "What's the secret?" I said, "Getting over the petty stuff," except I didn't say stuff. Anyway, so anyway, that's my little last drop of advice. I want to thank you, Jess. I want to thank all our callers and all our texters and the terrific guests we had on: Earl Ingram, Joe Zepecki, Dave Zirin, Jeff Worrell. And I want to thank Dom for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all. I want to thank Sage Weil at Civic Media. It's a great honor and privilege. And stay tuned.